All right. Okay, cool. So this says graph the equation. So I'm noticing that this is in vertex form. So the first thing I can do is identify the vertex. We saw kind of earlier here. So let me just write vertex form one more time. A x minus h, square it, and add k. So the vertex for us is hk. So that's the vertex. So in this equation, the vertex is going to be h is 4, because we're subtracting 4, and then k is 5. We're adding that 5. So this is the vertex, is 4, 5. So I think I'm going to do 4, 5. This is the vertex. I know that it's going to be facing upwards, and the question is, where can I put this other points? There's different ways you can do this. I think the way that I'm going to do it is I'm actually going to find, if x is 5, I want to find out what y should be. Another way to say that is I'm going to find f of 5. So I'm going to figure out, if I plug in 5 for x, what will I get for y? So if I use this equation, if I plug in 5 for x, what will I get for y? So I'm going to get 2 times 5 minus 4. I'm going to square that and then add 5. So if I use order of operations, the 5 minus 4 in parentheses becomes 1. 1 squared is 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. So this is going to actually all become 1, and that's multiplied by 2. So here, this all becomes 2, because it's 2 times 1, plus 5. So this gives us 7. So when the input for this function, when the input is 5, the output is 7. So when x is 5, that's the input, the output is 7. So this point here, 5, 7, this point here is on the graph. This point here is the vertex, 4, 5. So I think that's all I needed. Hopefully it likes this and I'm all right. All right, nice. So this is graph the equation. So this is an equation that's written in a factored form. So what this does is it's written, it's not in standard form, it's not in vertex form. So you can't use a lot of the kind of tips and tricks that we have. But one thing you can do, because it's factored, you can find both of the solutions, which are the x-intercepts. So if you set the equation equal to 0, if you want y to equal 0, maybe I'll just write it on this side. What I could do is I could plug in the number -6, or I could plug in the number -4. Both of those would result in 0, because it would give me a factor that is equal to 0. And if I multiply by 0, I'm going to get 0. So I know my two solutions here are -6 and -4. So that kind of helps. And maybe I can think of that. So like if I were kind of moving this around, my intercepts are at -4 and -6. That means that the vertex must be in the middle of those at -5. So what I'm going to do is figure out, where should the vertex go? I know that the middle of the graph, if I kind of draw it here, let me actually try to convince you this way. So if our intercepts are here and here, that means that the graph will be split at -5, right down the middle. The middle of the graph will be there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in -5 for x. I'm going to input -5 and see what I get for y. So I'm going to find f of -5, because -5 is halfway in between my x-intercepts. That means that's where the vertex is going to be when x is -5. So it's going to be 4 times x plus 6. -5 plus 6 is 1. And -5 plus 4 is -1. So when the input is -5, the output is 4 times 1 times -1. That's -4. There's one negative sign, and that all multiplies out to 4. So when the input is -5, the output is -4. So that means the vertex is way down here at -4. The input is -5, the output is -4. And my intercept, we already said one of them is -6. So I could put it here, or I could put it at -4. But either one is going to yield the same result. So hopefully this all works out. Looks good. All right, we're getting there. All right. So this says find the zeros of the function, enter the solutions from least to greatest. All right. Sounds fun. So I think what we're going to do here, to find the solutions, I can actually set the function equal to 0 and solve. And I think that is going to be the easiest, best way to solve this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take x plus 2 squared, just rewriting, x plus 2 squared minus 64, that equals 0. So what I'm going to do to solve this, I'm going to add 64 to both sides. So x plus 2 squared equals 64. So add 64 to both sides. And now I would probably take the square root of both sides. That's going to get rid of this squared. So if I take the square root of both sides, this kind of goes away. So I'm left with x plus 2. And the square root of 64 is 8. But it could be positive or it could be negative. So plus or minus 8. This is why we're going to get two different answers. So our first answer, let's use plus 8. So I have x plus 2 equals 8, positive 8. If I subtract 2 from both sides, x equals 6. If I solve the other equation, let's do a nice little pink, x plus 2 equals negative 8. Subtract 2 from both sides, x equals negative 10. So my two answers are 6 and negative 10. The greater one is 6, and the lesser is negative 10. All right. So this says graph the equation. It looks like it's written in vertex form. So I can identify the vertex. I won't write the whole form again, but the vertex is going to be the x value is the opposite of what's in your parentheses. This is for vertex form. 1. Y value is this term at the end, negative 4. So I know that is where my vertex is. So my vertex is at 1, negative 4. And now the question is, can I place another point? So I could put it any, I need to figure out where it could go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick a number that's pretty close to 1. So I'm either going to pick 0 or 2. And I think, honestly, I'll just pick 2. It's basically just as easy, but I'll pick 2 so I don't have to deal with negatives. So I don't know where it goes, but what I need to do is I need to find out where it goes. So I need to find f of 2. So when the input of this function is 2, what is the output going to be? So I need to put in 2 for x. I'm just going to erase so you can see the whole function. So this is the function. It's 2 times x minus 1, but here we're saying x is 2. So it's 2 minus 1 squared minus 4. So order of operations, 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 squared is 1. We had this kind of before as well in a previous question. So this all becomes 1 times 2, which is 2, and then minus 4. And 2 minus 4 is negative 2. So it looks like when the input is 2, let's see, why do I not like this? So 2, negative 2. So why do I not like this? I don't like this because I notice that the leading term is negative. So I think this should be a downward facing parabola. I could have messed this up. Oh, I see. The function is negative 2. Negative 2 times this. So this here is actually going to be negative 2 minus 4, which is negative 6. Okay, that's better. So when the input is 2, the output is actually negative 6. So this was wrong because this should have been negative. I forgot that negative sign there. So it's going to be when x is 2, y is negative 6. That looks better because it's facing downward. And if you look at the function, it should be facing downward. You're going to end up with a negative x squared term there. All right, very cool. So I hope let's make sure this is right. All right, very nice. So I hope this helps you. It's a ton of information here. So there's working with standard form, vertex form, factored forms, factoring, using completing the square, the quadratic formula. So it's like this is really, it's kind of like an all-encompassing unit on quadratic functions. So if you can get this, congrats, you know a lot about quadratic functions. So that's great. All right, well, I hope this helps. Have a great day, and bye-bye.